So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Very warm welcome and energetic to this energetic session hosted by the ISTD Kozhikode Chapter. ISTD stands for Indian Society of Training and Development. Today's topic, Armed Force and National Security, is not just about defense. It's about leadership, discipline, strategy, decision making under pressure, and above all, purpose. And to guide us through this, we have with us an exceptional leader. Please join me in welcoming Lieutenant General Hariz PM. Hariz, sir, a warm welcome. With decades of distinguished service in Indian Army and having served as a general officer commanding in Chief Southern Command, Sir has led large-scale operations, managed complex challenges, and taken decisions where the stakes were incredibly high. But what makes his presence even more valuable today is this: the principles that drive success in the armed force, clarity in vision, execution excellence, teamwork, resilience, leadership under uncertainty, are exactly the same principles that define success in business, education, and every professional field. In a world that is constantly changing, where uncertainty is a new normal, learning from someone who has operated in high pressure, high stakes environment can truly transform the way we think, lead, and perform. Sir's experience are not just stories, they are lessons for every one of us. Lessons that sharpen our mindset, strengthen our leadership, and elevate our approach no matter what or which field we belong to. To all our ISTD leadership members, MCs, coordinators, participants, professionals, and guests, welcome and thank you for being here and being part of this learning journey. So get ready for an evening of powerful insights and meaningful takeaways. Let's begin and thank you. Once again, warm welcome to each and every one of you.
Good evening, friends. Thank you very much, Deepak, for that warm welcome. And this is me, Shaukatali Arud, the chairman of the ISTD Kozhikode. I have a quick announcement before we begin. That is, we have decided to have online training every second and fourth Tuesdays of every month. And second, we already have trainers lined up till June. And the next one, which is actually second Tuesday of May, that is our second one after this, 12th of May, we have already scheduled a training on Microsoft Excel. Microsoft Excel made easy, a session led by the expert of Excel, by our member, Ashraf Muzammil. And today, to start with the training series, we have very decorated and respectful person. Some lead by rank, but some finest lead by 3 C's: courage, character, conviction. Tonight, we are delighted and privileged and honored to have somebody amongst us who is our member too. Lieutenant General Hariz PM. Sir, actually, despite of having actually kind of, in the offices of various decorated places, such as he was the head of the army training. He was also COA of Southern Region Command, and he was also the member of Armed Force Tribunal. Despite of having all such ranks he held, he keeps that the way he conducts himself, the modesty, simplicity, the way he is knowledgeable and experienced, and top of everything, icing on the cake is the attitude and approach to have shared those experience and knowledge with us, guiding us in a right way. And thank you very much, sir. We are going to have a very good session, I hope, I'm sure, and looking forward to hear you. And while welcoming you, I will also welcome all the members here. Let me invite the Lieutenant General Hariz PM, sir, for the talk. Armed Forces and National Security.
Thank you so very much, Shaukat. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, a very big thank you to Deepak and Shaukat for that introduction.
Okay, what I was saying was that this subject is an important aspect simply because national security today, we are seeing the facets of it and the facets of the breakdown or a partial problem issues with the national security and its impact even as the Gulf War is in progress. In India, we are already facing the shortage of LPG. We do not know where it would end. We are dependent on 60% of our LPG requirement on import. So therefore, the national security issue irrespective of where you are, always remains an important aspect because it is to deal with the well-being of the citizens of a nation, their prosperity, and the security of the nation to one who belongs. We all sleep well, we all are happy that we are safe only because we know that there is somebody else taking care of this security aspect. And this security aspect is primarily a issue of governance. And it is the government's mandate to ensure that the people and the state remain secure so that there is prosperity and growth and we move towards the goals that we have set out for ourselves. If I were to just say that security is something like oxygen, we are unaware of it though it is all around us, but the day the oxygen is stopped, you can just realize the turmoil that it creates. And same is the case with security. We've always had dreams of economic growth, institutions being developed, and many other ambitions being pursued. But the fundamental issue for all that and the foundation for that is security. Now, for example, take the aspect of Viksit Bharat 2047. We are looking at an economic growth to be a 40 trillion economy by 2047, to be a developed nation. That, in fact, is our national aim at the moment. And towards that, a lot of other things are being geared to it. It has got very distinctive objectives set out to reach that place. Such a dream can only be realized if the environment and the nation is secure and the people are secure and have time to commit themselves for this growth and the path that has been charted out. Hence, the issue of national security being an important facet. What I'm going to do today is to very briefly cover the concept of national security, the role of the armed forces in the security matrix. It is not to say that the other components are irrelevant or not or less important, but the armed forces have a unique role, so I just want to focus on that. Third one is the issue of strategic autonomy and national security. Why do I say strategic autonomy? Even as the Gulf War was playing out, there's been a lot of discourse in our national media and elsewhere as to whether, because of our strategic autonomy, whether we have kept quiet or whether we have taken sides or whether we have made adequate noise or not. So we will talk about that when we come to that. And finally is what Deepak was talking about, key insight from military leadership and strategy for the business world. Now, looking at security.
Hariz sir, you have gone mute. Hariz sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, somebody unmuted me from the other. Okay. How does the nation deal with national security and the strategy formulation? This is the issue regarding national security that we are going to be looking at. Now, national security, even Arthashastra had said that the ultimate source of prosperity of the kingdom is the security and prosperity of its people. The concept of national security has been evolving from the ancient times. In ancient time, security meant the security of the ruler and the kingdom. It was only after the Westphalia Act in 1658 and the concept of nation state came into being that sovereignty and national borders became an aspect of security aspect. Then later on, we go to see that the two world wars happened, and we saw how, apart from kingdoms and personal society, industry, economy, all of it became relevant for national security. And today, as we speak, we find that it is a very multi-domain aspect, and in fact, every spectrum that we can think of has an impact on the security of the nation. So as a very simplistic definition, it is a measurable state of the capability of a nation to overcome the multidimensional threats to its sovereignty and the well-being of its people. That is to ensure the national security. Why we require it, we would talk about it a little later. Now, you look at the domains which are impacting. Earlier, we've said that it was essentially a military matter, guarding the borders or ensuring security. Today, this entire gamut, including education, energy, space, all of it are important impinges on the national security. I do not need to say anything more on the energy. We are already witnessing and experiencing the issue regarding energy security in our own houses. If you walk into Calicut town, a lot of the small bakeries have been closed simply because gas is not available. Now, how does a nation deal with national security? Firstly, it normally establishes certain institutions as a central point to cater for national security issues. We, in fact, did not have a central point till 1998, when the Vajpayee's government actually set up the National Security Council in the aftermath of our nuclear policy at that point of time. So establishing institutions is one issue which is relevant to all the nations which have to deal with national security. Second is for the nation is to develop and articulate a national security strategy. And here you will agree with me that while the Western world always puts out a formal document to state their national security strategy, in India, we do not have a formally published document to call that it is our national security strategy document. And we have a variety of reasons as to why we do not wish to formally publish it. Once you have a strategy, then there is a resource allocation and a budgetary support to ensure that that strategy can be funded to its culmination for effective implementation. And alongside all nations, even as you have a national security strategy, they calibrate their international relations through alliances, security pacts, and multinational grouping. Let us see where we are. Now, this is a little busy slide, but I would just take your attention to the top end of it. This is the Cabinet Committee for Security, which is on the top with the Prime Minister heading it. It's got the Home Defense Finance and the MEA. And the second rung in the middle of the thing, you find the National Security Council with the NSA looking after it. And under the National Security Council are three aspects. To the right is the Strategic Policy Group. Now, if you look at the people who formed the Strategic Policy Group, this is the first year of a formal decision-making body. To the other extreme is the National Security Advisory Board. Now, this advisory board consists of about 11 members taken from academia, retired people, and they act as an interface between the academia, institutions, and the security apparatus. And in between, we have the additional NSA, under whom we've got somebody from the left, it's got the maritime security, somebody looking after internal affairs, that is the IA, a deputy NSA looking after strategic affairs, which is the foreign issues. You have a deputy NSA looking after the technical and int issues, which are technology driven, and you have a military advisor who's the military advisor to the NSA. Now, this whole apparatus works, and this is answerable to the Prime Minister's office, and important issues move up from the Strategic Policy Group to the Security Council and on to the Cabinet Committee for Security for implementation and acceptance. So this is the basic structure and the institution that India has in place at the moment. Now, strategy formulation. Now, this is an important aspect. The strategy formulation or the national security strategy is formulated primarily looking at the national core values and aims, from which the system draws out the national security interests, and from it, the national security objectives, and based on a strategy to achieve these objectives, the national security strategy is formulated. Here I put the aim at the national level to create a conducive external and internal security environment for unhindered and inclusive socio-economic growth. Viksit Bharat is looking at 2047 for unhindered growth and to become a developed nation. Now, the process of the strategy actually integrates the ends, ways, and means. The ends being the security objectives, the means being the national components of national power, which are multifarious, of which diplomacy, information, military, and economy are some of the bigger ones and the important ones. And the ways is actually the strategy which then spells out that utilizing the components of the national power, how do we modulate it and utilize it to achieve our national security objectives? So this in essence is the formulation of the security strategy at the national level. Now, why is it relevant? It becomes relevant because it defines national interests and priorities. It tells us what is critical, what is not critical, and how the resources and other things can be allotted. It actually assesses threats and risks. In our case, we have a omnipresent threat on our western borders and our northern borders. We have other issues internally. So there are both traditional threats, non-traditional threats, and many other threats today which are in the form of cyber attack and financial instability and other things. So all these are risks which are taken into consideration. Having done that, the national security strategy therefore provides a strategic direction to the nation and all the components of the nation as to how we are going to achieve what we have set out. And that direction tells the people that people are going to be safe. This is the way we will deal with external threats. This is the way we will deal with internal threats. And this is how we will secure our economy and everything else. This also acts as a guide for resource allocation. Because resource, as you are aware, and money is at a premium. So therefore, this resource allocation is critical based on the priorities which are laid down at serial number 1. The next issue, it signals intent, domestically and internationally. Why does the Americans put out a national security strategy? They want to tell their allies that this is what we intend to support you. They want to say this is our area of interest. So they formally declare what they want to do. Unfortunately for India, we do not have a formal document. But yet the relevance of a national security document is that it signals the intent of the nation in all these fields. And of course, it enables long-term planning and continuity. In essence, it's the blueprint for survival, stability, and long-term power. In doing all this, what does it do? It answers a couple of things, 3 primary things. What is it that we must protect? What exactly threatens it? And how will we respond? For each of the criteria that is set out in the objective, an answer has to be found on all these 3 counts. Resource allocation. Our economy is doing well. We are at 4.15 trillion GDP, growth at about 6.5. We are in the top 5 economies. Actually, as we are talking today, we are the 6th. There was a time when we beat UK and briefly we beat Japan as well. This, I'm told, is because of the rupee-dollar variation, but soon we will catch up. But what is important is the funds for defense capability is based on the GDP. And so therefore, there is a uniform GDP growth, and therefore there is money available to be spent on the security requirements of the nation. Purely defense expenditure, that's the defense budget, has been 2 to 3% since 1991 when the liberalization started. From 2022, there's been a relative decline, but the absolute spending has been increased. So one would assume that in years to come, we would spend about 1.8 to 2.5% of the GDP. And if the GDP is what we anticipate it to be, even this 2.5 would be adequate for us to meet our requirements. In doing all this, we have shifted substantially from quantity to quality and capability. And so therefore, that has costed money, that has ensured reduced numbers, but it has ensured better utilization of weaponry. Today, given Op Sindoor and other things, there's a focus on autonomous vehicles, cyber warfare, space security, and the indigenous defense industry. As we are all aware, there is a major thrust on Atmanirbharta, and all that is forming part of from the resource allocation. Earlier, a private sector entity which took up a defense contract would not get any funding from the government to make the prototype. Today, as part of the defense procurement procedure, based on what the item is, the government gives advances a certain amount of funds to the private sector for carrying out these work. So we have come a very long way in integrating and amalgamating the private industry into defense production. Apart from this, even as we speak, though the defense budget is about up to about 2.5%, in all the budgetary allocations year on year, we've got many other security-related allocations which exclude the defense budget. So therefore, as far as security itself is concerned, it is the defense budget plus many other components which add to the security of the nation. And today, the nation is working towards a balanced economy. That means economy and security remain balanced, and this is the model that we hope that we will come to as we develop towards 2047. On agreements and groupings, I just have to say this, that India has fastidiously and very consciously kept away from getting into alliance. And we have a reason for it. We never had an alliance because we said that we would remain non-aligned when we started with Pandit Nehru. Since then, we have actually never got into an alliance with any other country, whether as a defense pact or otherwise. Notwithstanding that, from time to time, we have made many arrangements of bilateral treaties for defense cooperation, security sharing, and many other things. I've just listed a couple of them here. Of course, 1954 Panchsheel was a little walk down, but otherwise then you had the Soviet Treaty, Indochina Border Treaty. We have treaties with pacts with the agreements with Israel. We have agreements with Iran. We have the United States Civil Nuclear Agreement, which has been an important milestone in 2005. We have many other agreements with US on logistics, communication, and intelligence sharing. That's the LEOMA, COMCASA, and the BECA. And we also have many other smaller treaties with France, Japan, Australia, and the ASEAN countries. And we belong to Quad, BRICS, SCO, and the G20. So therefore, we choose where we want to be, and based on what we require, we undertake this grouping and remain committed to that sort of a treaty. So therefore, to sum up this issue, national security is an important facet. The national security is formalized and institutionalized in the country. Though we have not put out a formal document, it is there, and when required, the issues are discussed and brought out. And we have essentially kept away from it because we felt that why would we need to show our hand prematurely, and why would we need to give away our intent? So that's one of the main reasons as to why we felt that we need not be so proactive in setting out a document per se. Now, business and national security. Very often, I'm sure even our audience here are wondering when we're speaking about this topic, what is it therein for me? All that I would say is that national security, all of us have a contribution to make. And I would say that the business community, by and large, has a major contribution to make. The economic strength is the bedrock of the national security. You have money, you can spend, you can do things, and people will respect you for it. And business is the engine of that strength. So therefore, the business community, big and small, everybody contributes to the national security, including our rubber board, the Kerala rubber board. I had an occasion to work with them to put across certain issues. Even they have a contribution to make towards national security. You look at rubber, the manufacturing end of rubber products, the tire industry, the the amount of rubber which is used by the defense forces in the Army, Navy, and the Air Force, and the host of other things. In fact, today, notwithstanding that we grow rubber in Northeast and in Kerala, we still import rubber for our requirements. So therefore, economic strength is the bedrock of national security, and business is the engine for that.
Hello, sir.
So your audio is gone, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, suddenly tripped. I was just wondering what it is. Now, the second issue is that the economic power translates into defense capability. Unless you have economic surplus, no sustained defense capability is possible. So therefore, again, business comes into being. The business community provides the industrial base and makes it possible for us to be strategically autonomous. And this industrial depth for the operational readiness and strategic independence is a vital issue. And today, the private industry has been so well amalgamated. I think Atmanirbharta is actually working in a major way to ensure that the private industry and the others are in a suitably enriched to ensure that the nation is provided for in this manner. Technology and innovation. Now, this is the new battle space. We have all seen technology and innovation. And technology and innovation in many ways and most ways is driven by the business community and the private and the corporate. And so therefore, the business community, the corporate houses, they bring the technology innovations which are then available for the defense of the nation. Today, you have so many dual use technologies. You hear of AI, we have already seen how one of the companies in America has had to tell the Pentagon that they would only be used for the defense purposes and cannot be doing private work. But essentially, technology and innovations in technology has stemmed from the private sector and the corporate. And that has then been brought into and utilized for the various other aspects by the country. Supply chain and national resilience. Now, the national resilience is very important. Economic continuity in crisis, you saw that happen in COVID. So the national resilience and all this is made possible by the business community. And therefore, if the business community was absent, I'm afraid that as a nation, we would lack this resilience to withstand. I've already touched this, critical infrastructure, dual-use backbone. Now, critical infrastructure, we've got the railways, we've got the airports, we've got the ports, we've got the telecommunication and many things. These are all dual-use backbone material. That means while in peace, it is utilized as an economic asset and becomes a strategic asset in a crisis, which are utilized for mobilization of forces, for communication and many other things. Cybersecurity and financial stability. This again is an offshoot and which is ensured by the business community, because after all, it is the private entrepreneurs who have actually worked very hard on cybersecurity and brought in all that is available today, even within the defense forces. Our business community and the corporate have a global footprint, and therefore they provide the economic diplomacy required. So they are present at various places in the world, and they are a representative of the nation at these places. Therefore, the public-private synergy is actually what accelerates the response and recovery in case of a crisis. And this whole of nation resilience comes about only when the business community and the private is actually involved. Last one, human capital and skill base. All of us here, especially in our group, we are doing training and development. We are investing in education, skilling and R&D. After all, what is it that we are doing? And this workforce, which is trained and skilled, is then available for various subsects of the nation for undertaking jobs that are required. So therefore, even that aspect is primarily driven by the business community and small entrepreneurs who are undertaking this job. All that I would say is that national security today rests on three pillars: military power, economic strength, and technology capability. And business sits at the heart of all these three. And so therefore, the business community has a pivotal role in ensuring and contributing towards national security. Big or small, everybody has a role in this. Even as individuals, we have a role in ensuring social harmony, communal harmony, and so many other things, so that there isn't a disquiet in a particular place. So all of us have a role to play in ensuring and contributing towards national security. A quick word about the strategic autonomy and how it impacts national security. Now, what is strategic autonomy? It's a foreign policy issue. It retains the freedom to take decision in national interest without being bound by any blocs, alliance, or trade power. It's a different matter. We get sometimes bulldozed in the tariff war and other things around. But essentially, we stood our ground. But we were not on any side. I mean, we still continued to take Russian oil till it became very difficult, and then it became a 50%. But we navigated that turbulent phase reasonably well, simply because we had always maintained strategic autonomy. Historically, we had non-alignment when we were born as a sovereign nation. And later, after the 65 war, the 71 war, there was a realistic adjustment. And we said that we would need to have dependency for military hardware on the Soviet. And that is how the first time we actually reached out to the Soviet for military support. Phase 3, that's after the 1991 transformation, two things. One of it is our liberalization in the country, and two was the demise of the Soviet Union. So that actually meant that we had to look at other places for looking at the resources that we need. And finally, today, we have a contemporary multipolarity in that, based on our actual needs, we are prepared to have an agreement with anybody who can give us what we want on a mutually agreed terms and conditions. And we are not beholden to say that we belong to the camp in the West or we belong to the camp in the East. Therefore, in some groupings, we are with the Chinese and the Russians. In another grouping, we are with the United States, and we happily sailing along, all the while retaining our strategic autonomy. Now, one of the couple of three major reasons why we needed to do this. The first one is the geographic location. I mean, we are located at a place where we've got two of our enemies along our land borders. One in the north, China, along the complete land border, and one in the west, that is Pakistan. And we also have a major maritime area which requires to be looked after. And today, this maritime area has become so very important and relevant. And in fact, the Navy has set out a national maritime policy, which is being implemented now. And it is as part of this policy, in the National Security Council, I showed you a Maritime Security Coordination Center. That it's actually set out in Gurgaon, but it's got its apex satellite stations all along the coastal area. And the complete maritime domain awareness is mapped through that. And that it is that important that the maritime movement and everything else become. And there is no single power which can give all that we require. We require critical minerals, ABC will give us. We require LPG gas, Iran has to give us, or Qatar has to give us. We require something else, somebody else has to give. So there is no gainsaying in saying that we will only have a pact with one particular country. So based on our requirements, we are willing as a nation to find that requirement from whoever has to offer that. And this has now become a necessity in a very uncertain global order. We're not sure how the way it will go. But essentially, we have navigated it quite safely so far. And I think strategic autonomy is here to stay. Now, how does it impact on the national security strategy? It provides us freedom of action. This is a fundamental advantage from strategic autonomy. We are now looking at multi-alignments instead of alliances. We'll go to the, in fact, we have an agricultural agreement with the Israelis since a couple of decades. We have technology, defense agreement with Israel. And why did we go that? We diversified. We felt the need to diversify. We went to the, we bought Rafale from the French. We bought something else from the Russians. We bought certain submarines from somebody else. All this meant a multi-alignment to source what we require from the agencies that have them. It also implies that if you are pursuing a route of strategic autonomy, there has to be a greater emphasis on self-reliance. It is only through self-reliance that you can minimize the amount of your reaching out to somebody else to take what you require. And that Atmanirbharta has been truly being implemented now, and it's a long way to go. But in many ways, this has reduced what we actually buy from outside. For example, I'll give you our artillery guns. We, till quite about a decade back, all our artillery, the Bofors came from Sweden, and some other guns came from somewhere else. We then had a Korean gun and another gun which came into the country. It is now being productionized by Bharat Forge and Adani Group, which has split the requirement and being made in India. I mean, Bharat Forge is one of the, possibly one of the only corporate which has got the capacity for forging long barrels and heavy barrels. So our private sector has brought in these technologies from outside at great cost. And today they're in a position to utilize it to ensure that we can produce what we require within the country. Our ammunition was such. We always had to take ammunition from outside. We have now taken transfer of technology, we produce it here. So therefore, we are no longer dependent on anybody else for the ammunition. Strategic autonomy also means another critical thing, that you must have a credible deterrence. Otherwise, nobody will take you seriously. And that credible deterrence, sometimes you will ask me, did we have credible deterrence against Pakistan? These fellows coming and troubling us in J&K, Pulwama, Uri, all Pathankot. Why isn't that we have provided credible deterrence? It is not because we don't have the wherewithal of doing it. But we had a concept of strategic restraint for very long. And I think for the first time in Op Sindoor, we have thrown that to a side and said what we will do is what we will do now. I'll just come to that. But essentially, credible deterrence is critical if people have to believe in what you're going to do. Now, this facilitates utilizing strategic ambiguity as a tool. If you're autonomous, then there is an ambiguity, there is space for diplomacy, and therefore it makes it that much useful. But then it comes with the risk of strategic isolation, because there comes when you are decided to be all by yourself, and then there is a sudden requirement when you reach out. The bargaining points are then of a different nature. And sometimes people would say that, no, sorry, we are not giving you a particular thing. So therefore, the strategic isolation is a fallout of the strategic autonomy that we are pursuing. Now, economic security is very critical if you are going to be strategically autonomous. And I think we are going the right way. We sincerely hope that our GDP growth would improve from the 6.5 that is at the moment. And we would be a 40 trillion economy by 2047. It also places a higher burden on governance and strategy, because now the government is responsible. You've heard, even as the gas issue came about, the amount of clamoring which happened. What is the government doing? Why aren't they getting here? Why is the gas not coming here? Today's Hindu carries an issue. Why the LPG dependence has become a vulnerability for the nation. It's worth reading. I mean, it is there to stay for a little while. Hopefully, we will tide over this too. So, having looked at national strategy, having looked at strategic autonomy, let us look at the role of the armed forces in all this. The armed forces consist of these three services: the Army, Navy, and the Air Force. The central paramilitary forces are not armed forces. I just want to clarify that, because sometimes there is a doubt whether, because we got BSF and others who work with us on border management and border security and other things. Yes, we opt them into our operational requirement, but they are not armed forces. Okay? Armed forces are just these three services, and they are enabled by an Army Act, a Navy Act, and an Air Force Act, an Act of Parliament for their well-being. Now, role of the armed forces, which is so vital: territorial integrity and defense. I mean, which goes without saying. We have a long border along Pakistan, which is entirely manned, especially from Jammu onwards. Our fence came up much later. Even where in the hill sector where we have got fence, we have forward deployment to cater for our defense of our nation. Along the Chinese border, we have deployments. We already heard of what happened in Galwan when the Chinese came into Depsang and Galwan and Hot Spring area 2-3 years back. And then we had to undertake certain actions. So therefore, to ensure the security of our sovereignty of the nation, there is a defense which is taken up by our forces along our borders with both Pakistan and China. And that ensures the territorial integrity. We also undertake counterinsurgency and internal security requirements. For a long time, we had counterinsurgency in the northeast. Then we had a little counterinsurgency in Punjab when the Khalistan movement was there. And starting 2000, we have had a major internal security issue in J&K, which still remains unsettled in many ways. And to all of this, we have had the armed forces to be opted for ensuring and undertaking these. The armed forces are also responsible for maritime and air security. We know our Navy has been participating in anti-piracy operations in Gulf of Oman and Red Sea areas and others earlier against the Somali pirates. We've been escorting vessels right up to Malacca Straits. There was the time when our Navy used to do that. Even now, our Navy is deployed in some way to ensure that if there is a requirement, we will reach out to ensure that our vessels are protected. So maritime security has become so critical because 90% of our incoming imports and energy and everything comes through the sea. So therefore, to us, the maritime security has become so very critical. They provide the strategic deterrence. Earlier, I said, does Pakistan know that we have, and they still keep fingering us. That is because we have a strategic restraint policy which says that we will absorb it. We will try and see diplomacy. We'll talk to them. But those fellows don't listen to us. They come back again to trouble us. But essentially, they know that conventional operations, we would beat them hollow. So therefore, that strategic deterrence, and they keep their terrorism operations just below the threshold where we would have to undertake conventional operations. Disaster relief and humanitarian assistance, I don't need to say this. When Pralayam was here in Kerala in 2018, all these three services were deployed in providing succor. Year on year, every time there's flood in the country, it is the Army, Navy, and the Air Force which steps up to provide. We've provided humanitarian assistance during earthquakes. We have provided humanitarian assistance to Malaysia. We have provided it to Sri Lanka. Anywhere else that is required, the armed forces have been pulled in to provide this assistance. We also have a large representation in the UN peacekeeping force. In fact, we have about 3 lakh personnel who were deployed into about 51 missions over the years. Currently, as we speak today, we have got about 5,000 troops and police force which are deployed in South Sudan and Congo and other smaller UN peacekeeping operations. International relations, defense diplomacy is an important issue. We carry out bilateral training, bilateral visits, we take their students into our training institutions, our people go into their training institutions.
Your voice is gone, sir. Audio.
Hello?
Yeah,
It's
yes.
fine.
Now I'm audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. We are all, the armed forces are also the key contributors to national security infrastructure. After border roads, telecommunication, and many other things, the complete 5G circuit and the underground fiber optic cable for the complete nation has been by and large laid by the armed forces. And so therefore, at the end, if we are practicing strategic autonomy, the armed forces are an important facet which enables the country to practice strategic autonomy. Sindoor, we spoke about this. I just want to say that there's a shift from strategic restraint to a doctrine of proactive calibrated deterrence. So we are now saying deterrence to compellence. We will hit you. We are now looking at act of war doctrine. Now, what does the act of war doctrine say? That terrorism is an act of war now. It is not a terrorism, and so therefore we won't need to act majorly or with heavy force. It has also ended nuclear parity. You know, always Pakistan kept saying that we got nuclear parity with India, and there's a threshold. We wouldn't do that because it might cross the nuclear threshold and all that. But this time we have shown that we are in a position to take decisive action well below the nuclear threshold and take it well and get him to come to the table. It also showcased technological precision and autonomy. I mean, autonomous vehicles, drones have become a buzzword now. I mean, I'm told in the army today, only officers from the air defense are preferred simply because they shot down a couple of drones as they came in and things of that sort. But essentially, speed of decision, speed of engagement, and speed of control have substantially increased over the last many years. I mean, I cannot say the way it is happening. What was there in our times and what we see today are so very different. So therefore, the decision from sensor to shooter kill has been reduced so drastically that you have to be on the ball to ensure that by the time you say go, it is already being done. Okay, so decision making and everything has become so very critical. Sindoor also ensured that we rejected the distinction between terrorists and the handlers. So Pakistan always said, "Hamara state, we are doing nothing. It is those bloody lumpen elements which are doing all this. We are not responsible for it." Now we have held the state responsible for terrorism. So this is again a very drastic shift. This needs to be understood well by all of us simply because we've been at the receiving end of this game for a long time. And each time, even let's say the Taj attack in Mumbai, it just happened after Parakram was over. We should have gone. I mean, that was a bigger massacre, equally bigger massacre as Pahalgam was or anything else was. But we didn't. Restrained. We deployed, but then we were not permitted to go because US intervened and said, no, you will not move forward. So all those things happen. But today, I think we have now been able to blend military precision with political resolve. So we have said that we are ready to take a decision and implement it. Now people will think twice before doing what they normally do. And I hope that continues to stay that way. Now a brief look at the components of the Indian Army. I'm just talking about the Army. The Navy and the Air Force too are similarly put together. We have combat arms. The combat arms are the elements which are actually doing the fighting. That's the infantry, the armored corps which fights with a tank, which is a 40-ton armor-protected vehicle. and the mechanized infantry, which is fighting with a 12 to 14 ton vehicle which carries stick in it, which carries a section in it. I belong to the mechanized infantry. So therefore, these three are the main fighting elements. Then we have the combat support arms. In order for the combat arms to successfully fight and wage a battle, you require artillery, air defense, engineers to ensure mobility, counter-mobility tasks, signals to ensure communication, intelligence to provide the necessary intelligence, and the aviation assets. They are all the combat support arms. And to feed and look after all these guys comes the combat support service. This is called the supply corps, the ordnance corps. Supply looks after essentially a fuel, lubricants, rations. The ordnance corps, as the name suggests, looks after munition, weapons, and others. Electrical and mechanical engineers, they're responsible for the upkeep of our vehicles, the medical dental, remount and veterinary corps. Surprisingly, the army has got mules, army has got dogs, army has got horses. So we got a remount and veterinary corps which is there to look after them. We got a judge advocate general, a JAG branch which looks after discipline and the legal requirements. We have a core of education. This is being slowly wound up, but they're essentially people who are direct graduates and postgraduates who are directly recruited and are available for instructional purposes at various places. We have a postal corps. We have a military police, territorial army, a unit of which is there at West Hill Barracks here. And we have the Pioneer Corps and the Defense Security Corps. All these are part of the combat support service. The Navy and the Air Force are also similarly got a combat support and combat service support. So I won't go into that. I just want to say how we are organized. Very often people ask me, you are a major, but where are you? You are a colonel. What are you doing? You are a lieutenant general, but why aren't you here? And things of that sort. I just want to lay down this hierarchy correct. A unit is the fundamental fighting unit in the army. It could be a unit of the combat arm. It could be a unit of the combat support arm. It could be a unit of the combat services support. A unit is normally commanded by a colonel, and he's the CO. A couple of such units along with the headquarters then becomes a brigade and is commanded by a brigadier who's the one-star guy. A couple of these brigades together along with support elements becomes a division which is commanded by a general officer commanding who's a major general. 2-3 of these divisions together along with supporting elements becomes a corps which is commanded by a lieutenant general who's also called the GOC of the corps. While the other major general is the GOC of a division, this lieutenant general is the GOC of a corps. Finally, we have the army, the command, who's also a 3-star general, but he is called the general officer commanding in chief. So if I was the Southern Army commander, I had 2 or 3 corps under me, which had 2 or 3 divisions under them, and so on and so forth. In fact, I had about 3 lakh troops under us and 700, 800 vehicles and paraphernalia. In fact, Southern Command is the largest command which looks after 44% of the territory in South. Though we have only a small border of about 1,200 kilometers to look after, but then we have a lot of littoral and territory along the coastal area. And the commands are therefore, the army is organized into geographic commands. The Southern Command, as you see here, looks after this portion. And opposite Pakistan, we have the Southern Command, we have the Southwestern Command, the Western Command, and a portion of the Northern Command. Now, earlier, during 65 war and 71 war, we only had one Western Command which looked after this complete front. But over the years, based on what they had, the force level they had, and the way we needed to organize ourselves, this has been split into 3 commands. We have the Northern Command, which is responsible on one end, on one side, on the western side against Pakistan, and on the eastern side against China. Then we have a Central Command, which looks after the central portion of against China, and the Eastern Command, which looks after the Northeast. In addition, we have a Training Command at Shimla. So this in essence is how the army is laid out. And correspondingly, we have the commands of the Navy and the Air Force also laid out to support the structure as we talk. So therefore, the ones in white are the Air Force, the one shown here in white here, Western Air Command, Southwestern Air Command, and Southern Air Command, Central Air Command, and Eastern Air Command, correspondingly available for the theaters which the army commands are there. Being Air Force, sometimes you will have resources of the Southern Air Command being made available to the Southwestern Command. But if nothing else is happening, they can be employed, re-employed, and redeployed faster. So therefore, their resources can be moved inter-command at much faster pace than the ground forces can be. As far as the Navy is concerned, we've got a Western Naval Command here at Mumbai. We got a Southern Naval Command at Kochi. We got Eastern Naval Command at Vizag. So these are the three naval commands. The one seen here in maroon or purple are the Andaman and Nicobar Command, which is a tri-service command, and the Strategic Forces Command, which looks after all our BrahMos and nuclear delivery resources and other things. And the Strategic Forces Command and the Andaman Nicobar Command come directly under the headquarter, Integrated Defense Headquarter, IDH. Now, control of the armed forces. Often people say that thing, there is a firing, one can just pick up a rifle and get your guys together and go and bash up somebody or shoot up and come. No. The application of the military is a political requirement. And so therefore, there has to be a clarity that whenever military force is applied, it is to achieve a political end state that has been set out. And to ensure that that coordination happens, the control of the armed forces works through the Higher Defense Organization, Service Headquarters, and the operational commands. It's an interactive process. Essentially, what does it do? It provides politico-military guidance to the armed forces. And therefore, it links political objectives and end state and strategic objectives to the military strategy and military end state. After all, the military must have a plan to achieve a goal which must lend credence to what the political end state has set out. So that match happens in a dialogue here. So there's a process of consultation based on which this happens. I won't trouble you with this, but it's essentially the National Security Council and the Cabinet Committee on Security, now along with the three chiefs and the other elements that I spoke about under the IDS headquarters, the Andaman Nicobar Command, the Strategic Force Command, and we also have a nuclear command authority, which works works to the National Security Council and functionally linked to the Strategic Forces Command. So that is how this whole thing works. This higher defense organization is meant to strategize, administer, and direct prosecution of war. This must be very clear. So therefore, it doesn't happen that the military is doing something on its own. It is doing it for a political end. And administration, I've just set out here what it entails. Now, this is the integrated defense staff. You are aware that this came about after the Kargil committee and the first integrated defense staff CISC was posted when General Bipin Rawat became the CISC in 2019. Today, they have the Andaman and Nicobar Command under it, the Strategic Force Command, Special Operation Division. The Special Operation Division is a division with special force for undertaking special operations. You have the Defense Space Agency and the Defense Cyber Agency all working under it. Starting 2019, this has now become the Department of Military Affairs, and the CISC is a secretary to the Government of India. And therefore, he has certain administrative hold over all the three services, but yet he doesn't have today the operational control over what the three services do. Okay. So that is why today we are talking of theater command, joint training. I mean, we keep reading all that. These are things which have been tasked to him to ensure that they must implement all this. Now, coming to the last aspect of what we have set out. Normally, if you were to look at leadership and strategic key insights, I mean, one would actually look at the principles of war as spelled out for the armed forces, Sun Tzu. I mean, you've got any amount of material which lays out how do business enterprises take lessons from any of this. But I'm doing it a little differently. I'm just looking at the certain issues which come up for direct leadership and certain issues which come up on strategic leadership. You're available we spoke about the leadership levels. This is the level of leadership as it works. I mean, it's quite evident the levels at which they work. Now, there is a subtle difference between the military and the corporate. And this needs to be understood, and then you will understand why we do what we do and why we can't do it the way you tell us to do, or either way. Firstly, structure. Business is profit-oriented. The army and the military is not profit-oriented. The culture is loyalty to the owner. Here it's to the constitution and flag. It's mission over life. Distinctly different from what any business enterprise does. Governance, you have a corporate body, public scrutiny, shareholders. Here you have a hierarchical organization, and then I spoke to you about the defense organization. Managing change in the business community is easy, but here it's very complex because we are so steeped in procedures, operating procedures. And sometimes you'll ask, why do we do that? It has to be a muscle memory for us. I don't need to tell anybody when a bullet is fired what it does. If a section is walking and a fire opens, the first two guys will immediately hit the ground, crawl and get to a position and return fire. Nobody has to tell them what is to be done. But that's how they've been trained. So therefore, since you are repetitively trained and you're brought to a final level on that, making rapid changes or incremental changes becomes a little complex issue. Training in the business world, I can't say it's minimal, but as compared to us, because in the armed forces, it is continuous and repetitive. And at all levels, be it for the soldiers or be it for the officers, there is a continuous training which happens at all levels as you grow up in life. So therefore, the personal different skill set that is required on both ends. So structure and organizational culture, and therefore how to align people to achieve their goals becomes critical. And that is the fundamental difference that we have. But yet we take good lessons from business into the armed forces, just as the armed forces lessons are taken by the business for adoption. Now let's look at some direct leadership lessons. I've just put them together. Integrate well into a new organization. So very often we go and join a new unit, you'll go join a new company. See, you have to make an effort to integrate well into your new house. It's like getting married and going into a new house, no? The girl has to, I mean, boy also today has to do that. But I think it works both ways, but you have to integrate well into the new family. Now, when I say that the incoming guy is required to integrate, it is also for the organization which is receiving him to make it possible for him to integrate well and to make him comfortable that he is felt wanted and he can add to your organization and he knows that he'll be able to work well. It's not that within 1 week he says, yeah, this is not the place I want to be. I think I better be going. In the corporate or in business, you can do. Here we can't. So we are stuck with where we are. So integration is an important issue. And it is true for you too. Be a person of character and integrity. I mean, I think this is universal. Often people ask us, what is character? I would only say it is what you do when people are not looking at you. Simplistically. So this is a critical thing because very often this is what lends credence to our military leaders when we call upon people to follow and go into battle. So this is equally important for both the corporate world and us. Now, lead with competence and empathy. I mean, competence, we assume you with competence, but sometimes you find guys who come, you find them incompetent, and I'm sure that you'll slowly ease them out. And just as we ease out somebody whom we find doesn't measure up to our requirements and standards. But empathy is very important. You should be able to listen to another person and empathize with them. And I think that empathy quotient in the armed forces is a little higher. And like I said, the leader eats last. It's a very important issue for us. When people move, and let us say people are moved from Kozhikode to Malappuram and they have to set up camp there. And when I reach there, I don't go eat my dinner. I first go to the cookhouse where feeding the men, see whether the cookhouse has been set up. I then go see the lines where they have to stay. I then go and look at the toilets which have been dug because they have to be up tomorrow morning. It's only when I'm satisfied that all these guys are comfortable that I will go to my place of stay and have my food. The leader eats last. It's not that the moment you come in, food is laid out for you and you start gobbling and then you don't think about it. So it's a very important thing, and we live by this principle. Now, I wanted to tell you about this. This is the 19 Madras Siachen saga. The involvement of a commanding officer. Now, 19 Madras was a unit which was with me when I was a co-commander. And from there, it went into Siachen. It was deployed at about 21,000 feet at a post called Sonam post along the Siachen Glacier. A section was hit by an avalanche and 10 guys were buried. It happened on the 3rd of February 2016. It is only on the 8th that they were able to dig out people from that avalanche. There was only one survivor, Lance Naik Hanumantappa, and he was flown to Delhi to the RR where he succumbed to injuries on the 11th. But what is relevant and what I'm not discussing here is the first-hand knowledge of how this battalion was involved in clearing and getting these people out, even though they had expired in the avalanche. And that complete credit goes to that CO, because absolutely inhospitable. Even if the army wanted to give them doses, nothing can reach them. So therefore, what can reach them? You're talking of 6,200 meters height. It is the highest helipad in the world. I mean, every day a helicopter cannot land because it has to just look for those 20-30 minutes of fair weather to go and land and pick up things. Under all the deprivations and conditions, this company which was there dug out all of them and accounted for every manjack from that company. And I knew them well. I got involved into this only because I've written here Subedar Nagesh TT on the top right corner photograph. This one. He used to be my security det commander when I was a co-commander. Very vibrant. Very, very vibrant. So therefore, I mean, this is the CEO and the company commander. I mean, I always use this, irrespective of what I'm talking, I have to talk about this sacrifice made by this unit in ensuring and pulling out the people. And it was under tremendous tribulation that they actually did. Lead by example. This requires no explanation. You have to be good. People will follow you. They will be good too. I mean, you're a crook. People see, my boss does it, so I must also do it this way. But provide a good example. Now, fear is a reaction. Courage is a decision. Many years ago, as a young company commander, we were in Oprakshak in Punjab. So we were walking out at night for an operation, and there was a fire, and my radio operator who was walking next to me, the radio is on his back, I am holding the handset and talking. He got injured and he fell down. And there was a little commotion in our group. Two things would have happened. Either I would have, under fear, told everybody go to ground and done nothing. But on the contrary, the guy next to him quickly picked up the radio pack from him, and we just kept moving. And with us moved everybody else. And of course, by morning, then we undertook the operation. So therefore, fear is always there. And when bullets fly, fear is there. But then courage is a decision that you have to take. And I need this example to tell you for this. And this is again a Malayali officer of ours, Major R. Rishi from my battalion, who was in RR. This is in March 17 at a place called Tral. They had laid out a cordon for some terrorists in a village, and the Jawan had gone ahead to place a explosive device against a door and a wall. And Rishi saw that it had been incorrectly placed and it would not have the necessary impact. So rather than send the boy again to do it, Rishi, who was in the close vicinity, crawled up to do that, and in the bargain, he got shot in the face, broke jaw, and since then, he keeps his face covered the way he's shown in this photograph. He didn't have to do it. But courage and fear, that is what the issue is. Fear is there, but then that is the courage which was required by the officer on the spot. I also wish to state this: failure is contagious, but success is infectious. We often come across guys, sub-elements. I once had a unit which came to us with a lot of very poor spoken repetition. This unit is useless, they're always into trouble. In that station, they did ABCD and all that. But when they came to us, what did we do? We gave them a task which we thought they should do well, and that success gave them a great flip to what they were. And so therefore, if there is a failure, it is immediately contagious, but success too is equally infectious. So as a leader, endeavor to find opportunities, to provide opportunities to guide to be successful. Develop your subordinates and yourself. This requires no iteration. This is equally important. Now, setting goals and laying down standards. You have it in your organization, just as we have it in our organization. And there is a periodic testing for all of this, which is required to be done. This, I think, all of you have done well in that the corporate world appreciates, understands, and embraces technology. We are making a very conscious effort in the armed forces to embrace technology. And the current lot of soldiers are equally tech savvy as they are. As a leader or a subunit or a sub-vertical in a company, you are responsible for the preparedness of your sub-vertical. So that is the implicit responsibility that is there in you. And you have to take it well to ensure that this is done correctly. A few quick lessons from the strategic leadership issue. Clarity of purpose. Mission first, define strategic intent carefully. Now, you might say, I just want to grow. But what you ought to be saying is that I will dominate a tier 2 market in 3 years through low-cost distribution. So there's a difference in the way you look at the strategic intent. Control intent, but not every action. Now, this is very important. In our case, the planning is centralized, but the execution is decentralized. Everybody down the line know what is expected of him to be done. So even when communications fail and others, people move out and complete a task because they know exactly what the organization expects out them to do. So therefore, even in a company, you control the intent, but you don't have to be actively involved in looking at all decisions that are being taken. We spend a lot of time in war games and simulations so that it improves the preparedness in scenario planning. We saw how people dealt with the vulnerability in COVID. The fundamental idea is to anticipate disruption. Don't just react to it. We should be able to anticipate it. Now, speed of decision. Like today, the speed of decision is important and made enhanced because of technology. All that we are saying is that in a competitive market, speed often beats perfection. So what you can do, a decision today is better than an absolutely perfect one, maybe tomorrow. Now, logistics and operational capability must be seen as a competitive advantage and not as some back-end operation. In military operation, very often logistics is the one which is sustained operation. You take Siachen, it is a logistician's nightmare. But then we've been since 1984 maintained a brigade worth there simply because we have ensured that logistic has a paramount importance in that. In the armed forces, leadership is always under stress and uncertainty. Decisions are always with incomplete information. So even for the corporate, don't wait for perfect data. One needs to build comfort with ambiguity. And that comes with practice and ability and your peer group and your elders to you and the hierarchy holding your hand when required. But this is an important facet that you should be able to take decisions in a little vacuum of uncertainty as always. Now, team cohesion and spirit decor, I don't need to elaborate this. Organizational culture is always a force multiplier. For us, it is easy to build an organizational culture, but for the corporate, some of the bigger corporate houses have an organizational culture. The small corporate houses and smaller entities are not too sure how much of an organizational culture you're in a position to develop. We undertake regular after-action reviews to understand what went wrong, what things were done right, and where we need to improve. The issue is that fundamentally institutionalized turning is vital. Make reflection a discipline. Optimization of resources. Now, optimization of resources is an important one, simply because often we are acting with inadequate resources. And that inadequate resource comes to us simply because there isn't enough to go around. So constraints must drive innovation, and it should not be a limitation to what we do. So these are some of the fundamental lessons from the strategic level, which I thought would be relevant to us in the business world. This is a whole of lecture topic to look at leadership and what the good practices that either side can take from each other. But therefore, I've just given you a flavor of what is possible. So with this, I come to the end of the lecture today.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so very much. I'm willing to take any questions if you may have. I know we have overshot the time, but notwithstanding that.
But it was worth overshooting, sir. Thank you very much. New world, new thing, new stuff. Thank you very much. Yeah, any takers for the questions?
I see Colonel Sundar and Reggie Kudwet, two people whom I know. Hi, Sundar. And Reggie
Sir,
Kudwet,
I have a question in case the question
Canada.
answer session is on, sir.
I think he is logged in from Canada, unless he's here on leave. He's muted. Yeah, any questions at all?
Yes, sir. I have a question in case I can post the question, sir.
Yes, please.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are.
First of all, sir, thank you for an excellent presentation, really enjoyable. Sir, during your talk, you mentioned two very important things, sir. First is, you said that India has been on the receiving end for quite a long time. Then you also said that there is a shift happening from deterrence to compellence. Now, in the nuclear scenario, Pakistan does not have no first use, but India does have a nuclear policy of no first use. Now, our defense minister has been letting hints drop very subtly that probably we may also be going towards not having a no first use, not because we're going to drop bombs on Islamabad or something, but maybe because of tactical nuclear use of weapons, will also make our shift from deterrence to compellence, sir. What are your views on this, sir?
See, actually, as far as the nuclear policy goes, as of now, our declared policy is no first use, if compelled, rapid retaliation with massive force. That is our stated policy. And there is nothing in the domain or in the service circle to say otherwise that we are changing it. But it is quite possible that the Raksha Mantri, like they like to make sometimes a statement just to keep the other guy guessing, that he's let a cat out of the bag in saying that we might also think in this manner. But Op Sindoor made it very clear that they cannot hold us to nuclear ransom, saying ki, if you do this, we will go nuclear. If you go this, we'll go nuclear. And they would go and tell somebody else. But this time over, they knew that it was not going to happen, and we would still hammer them until they came to the table. So I think as a policy, we are still at the no first use.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hi, sir. I have one point to make.
Yeah.
War is not a defense service game. It is a national game. As what we see in Iran, Israel, the Gulf. There's a need to educate our people, basically the civil society, about what role they have to play. Whether it is during internal security, like the Pralayam which happened, how can they help or assist the armed forces in achieving our aims or goals? And the first and foremost is keep quiet. Don't spread rumors on the social media. That is one. Secondly, war is not something what you see in the Malayalam movie. Edukada thokku vekkada vedi. No, it doesn't happen like that. It takes a lot of time, which many people are unaware of the procedures, how it goes through, how the decisions are made. So our civil society got to get into it and get educated on that subject. Coming to the Pakistani nuclear bluff, as I call it, when Musharraf was in command, or was a martial law administrator, if you remember, A.Q. Khan was put under arrest. They are nuclear scientists. And Americans have locked it up. So a country, it's like the local gunda in our village who says, Endel Kathiyund. So India doesn't say that we are a nuclear power or we are going to use the nuclear weapon. It's Pakistan which keeps harping. That means they do not have the ability. That is my assessment. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Regarding the process of educating people, I think today, by and large, there is greater awareness of what happens. And if Pralayam is an example, I think our civil society and people came out in huge numbers to help anybody who was in trouble and everywhere else. But yes, war is a serious business. War is not the preferred option. And during Op Parakram, we only deployed and didn't go into war. Yet we lost 800 soldiers and incurred a substantial expenditure merely in moving our forces to the border. So therefore, a war itself causes a lot of economic drain on a nation in that manner, apart from the fact that we lose life and material. So it's true. It is the last preferred option, but then the other side should know that if push comes to shove, we would do it. And I think that is what has been now shown in Op Sindoor. Thank you, Rajiv.
Now, coming to the internal security, in 2004, when I was commanding the regiment, I happened to lay my hands on the Kerala's disaster management document. I read about Kottayam, my own township. It spoke of two landmarks, Star Theatre and Rajmahal Theatre, which were raised to ground in my childhood only. Nobody has even bothered to update any of these documents, without which it will be difficult for the civil administration and the military which comes for all these assistance.
No, absolutely. Those were the responsibilities of the civil administration.
Exactly.
Make up the plans.
I spoke to the Kottayam collector. I said, do you know how many JCBs are there? One of the most important resource required to do any disaster management, whether it is a flood or an earthquake, is a plant which we can't carry. So the district administration, tahsildars, the RDOs should all have the contact details of the JCBs and other planned equipment. And who's going to provide them the diesel? Where is it going to come? Who's the driver? Nobody is maintaining any of these databases.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste, sir. I am Dr. Sulekha, sir, from Guwahati ISTD chapter. Sir,
Good evening.
sir, excellent and very, very informative information you have provided to us, sir. Sir, in the beginning, I missed most of the important points due to the network problem. Anyway, sir, you have mentioned international relationship very clearly. I learned more. And one thing is that I am the student of international relationships, sir. So my one question is that, what is India's stand on the current war situation, sir? Secondly, sir, do you think India will be okay?
Sorry interrupting you. Can you just repeat what you said just now?
What is India's stand on the current war situation, sir?
Okay. Okay,
Secondly,
let me answer that first.
Okay, sir.
We
Fine.
spoke about strategic autonomy, and
Okay, sir.
so therefore we have relationship with Iran, we have relationship with Israel, we have relationship with United States, and we have relationship with all the 6 states of the Gulf Cooperation Council as well. So we had a very difficult task at hand to whether to condemn the attack or say otherwise. It was unfortunate that as a government, we did not condemn that attack on Iran. What actually caused a lot of greater grief was the fact that when the Ayatollah was killed, it took the Indian government 3 days to wait before they went and signed the condolence book, and that too by the foreign secretary. No, I think at some point of time, we were still wondering how do we balance out our reaction to all this. Now, we are part of BRIC. We are the chair. We hold the chair for the BRICS Association for this year now. And therefore, the Global South is with us, along with the BRIC organization. I learned that initially the BRIC was to issue a statement on the war. But then the Chinese and the Russians wanted some very strong comments to be written into it, which was not very palatable to us because of our own stance with the countries involved. And hence, the BRICS also never issued a formal statement condemning it or otherwise. So we have been trying to pause and wait and see how does it pan out without muddying the water for future negotiations. In spite of all this, we still speak to Iran. We have ensured that we had a safe passage for our vessels through Hormuz. So I suppose Iran too understands why we are doing what we are doing. So I would like to believe that given the type of relationship we have had with Iran, they quite understand that India has acted in its interest, but yet has been sympathetic to what has been happening. I think that is the way, but we have no declared stand to say that the attack is incorrect or some injustice will be done to Iran in this manner. We are not part of that. But in the same way, if you were to talk about the Ukraine war,
yes, sir.
When the UN resolution was being passed, we abstained from voting. So you may ask, उसमें क्या हो गया, क्या फायदा हुआ? But it is because of our relationship with Russia that we wanted to tell them, look, friend, whilst we are your friend, we still feel that this Ukraine thing has not happened correctly, and therefore we have not voted for you, and therefore we have abstained. You see, so therefore, at points of time, we've been able to take stances which are relevant to our own requirement. I hope that answers your question.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. So my second question is, do you think India will be impacted by the rising war tensions?
Impacted by the?
Rising war tensions?
No, I couldn't get the last word.
The
War
rising
tensions,
war
sir. War
tensions.
tension.
War tensions.
War tension.
Yes, sir.
See, we are already impacted. Let us say you look at our LPG requirement. That is the first one which has hit us. As you are aware, last year we utilized 31.5 million tons of LPG,
Yes.
out of which only 40% is domestic production. 60% is import. So we are so reliant on import of LPG gas that our domestic consumption, which over the years, हमने बोला कि घरों में चूल्हा होना चाहिए, nobody should use other material, firewood and other things. We have progressively weaned away households away from utilizing firewood and other forms to utilization of gas. But yet today we are caught in a quandary that while our utilization or requirement is 31 million tons, our local production is only 40%. So it is a vulnerability that we are facing. So yes, we are impacted. And we hope that the impact would get resolved and this would be the only adverse effect of the war that we will feel. But if things go bad, then one sees cost of petrol going up, and then we don't know what else will happen. So at the moment, we are still hopeful that they will find a way to amicably resolve this. And again, the talks are on at Pakistan, though Iran delegation is not gone. So we are still awaiting to see what is the outcome of it.
Sir, to what extent would this situation affect India's IT sector and overall economy?
Sorry?
To what extent would this situation affect India's IT sector and overall economy?
See, overall economy, at the moment, it has not made a material difference to our economy. But let me put it this way. Kerala, our state is being impacted because we have a large diaspora working in the Gulf. The other day I was traveling back from Delhi. We had a huge number of youngsters who were coming back. I said, why are you coming to Calicut via Delhi? So they said, no, we don't have flights going to Calicut. The only flights were those which were coming. So there's a lot of displacement of people from there. So, and the economy in the Gulf itself, the hub of Dubai airport is closed to large extent. So therefore the airlines have an issue. So therefore, as a financial hub, looking at trade and economic activity, there is a lull in the Gulf area today. So let us see how much of it will actually impact us materially in terms of people coming back, remittance being reduced and other things. Yes, on the long run, if it continues adversely, it is going to have an impact.
Yes.
Hello, sir. So there are
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Hariz, sir. There are a couple of questions in the chat. Are you able to see them?
May I wear my headphones now?
Yeah, please, sir. Please, sir. Let us try. Sir, are you seeing those questions in the chat room? A question from Abhiram, another one from Starlight Deeps.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you please go through the questions in the chat? One from Abhiram first.
Just a minute.
Abhiram TP. With these two questions, I think it's better to kind of wind up.
Whose question are we talking about?
Abhiram TP, sir. Around 10 minutes ago.
10 minutes.
2056.
Just a minute.
If you want, I can copy paste again.
I'm still looking at 1957 is all good evenings.
So I'll just copy paste here. You can see it again.
Okay.
Yeah, it's here.
So I'll just read it out for you, sir. It's from Abhiram TP.
Yeah.
He's asking, inducting a fifth generation fighter jet being a necessity, how we look into this? In your personal opinion, we should depend on Russia with Su-57 or USA with F-35, especially in the situation where we are lacking rapid developments with Tejas. This is the question from Abhiram, sir.
Okay. First, the issue of necessity. Then we will look at from where this necessity can be brought in. As far as the Air Force is concerned, from the time that they have eased out their MiG-21 squadrons and the obsolete squadrons, the number of effective fighter squadron numbers have come down. So we are a little critical. And that is why there is an additional procurement of the Rafale aircraft, which is happening now. And as progressively, it is important that we get a fifth generation aircraft. Whether we should toe the line of Americans merely because they want to give it to us and force and make it available for that company to sell it to India is a different matter. As I read from the papers, it is still under evaluation. There is no decision being taken as to which is good or bad. And I don't think an RFP has been issued out formally for a fifth generation jet. Because what happens is when a RFP is issued, both the Americans, the Russians, even the Swedes or anybody else who got a good aircraft, they will all respond to it. And once it's responded, it is fully trial evaluated. And it's only after that the Air Force will come to a conclusion as to which is optimal for our requirement. Necessity, yes, it is there.
So fine,
Any
sir,
other question?
One more question.
Yeah.
Yeah, CD sir, would you like to read or?
Yeah, this is from Starlight Deeps. Is that the one you are talking about?
Yeah, please.
Sir, could you please elaborate the collaboration between national security and intelligence? Why is it that our intelligence fails tracking terrorist activities like 2611 Pahalgam? This was the first one, sir.
Okay. See, I would say this much. Having seen activities in J&K, it is practically not possible to know and stop every single element which comes across and decides to undertake an attack. Most we ensure that we grab them, and most when we have an information, we trap them. But there is an odd guy who slips through no matter what intelligence or what ground intelligence or what serious intelligence that you have. So therefore, I wouldn't squarely lay it at the door of an intelligence failure that Pahalgam attack happened. It could happen anywhere. It could have happened in the heart of the country. We've had similar activities which happened in Delhi, elsewhere. So an isolated 1 or 2, 3 guys coming to do a job is very difficult to do it. And the problem is that unfortunately for us, there are sympathizers amongst our own population who are willing to provide safe haven, transport, money, or anything else that is required. So the intelligence agencies keep a watch on all of this, but sometimes a guy slips through, and that is what I would say is happening there. Yes.
Hariz, the second question from Starlight Deeps is also kindly throw some light on India's efforts on self-sustainability and capability, building in-house versus importing from other nations. Of course, you did cover a little bit on the Atmanirbharta.
See, okay, Atmanirbharta, if I were to give a positive example, I think our shipbuilding is a major shining example of domestic consumption being built here, being operated here. For many years now, most of our shipbuilding has been done in Garden Reach or at Mazagon Dock or in Goa Yard. So therefore, we are reasonably well established as far providing and looking at ship platforms for the Navy is concerned. Building submarines, we are still a little away. We are yet to have an indigenous submarine built, but at the moment we utilize what is available to us. Air Force, I'm afraid that our quest for an engine has yet to fructify well. So therefore, we are still floundering in terms of induction of Rafael or anybody else who's required. Even our Tejas aircraft, I mean, the number of squadrons which we brought in, not all of it has come in time. I mean, you heard once the air chief say that he was most unhappy with the HAL in terms of their not being able to meet the delivery schedule. There's a huge backlog of delivery schedule for the Air Force. For the Army today, much of our kit is being done with it. And let us say the tanks, the guns, the ICVs. The tanks and ICVs are on a TOT, transfer of technology, in-house production by the Indian, say, we've got a Medec factory which produces the ICV. We've got a factory in CVD, Madras, which produces the tanks. And the ancillary equipment of it was outsourced to the local industry. So therefore, we are going that way, but there is still a long way to go. Our recent acquisition of drones, mostly done in-house. Of the firm in Chennai, which provides the logistic drones for the CRPF in the mountains, so that mules are not required. So all this work has been done by local private firms which are doing it. Yes, we are going in the right direction, and there is yet more to be done, but I think this is the way to do it.
I think we're almost done, sir. If we don't have any question, we'll move towards the conclusion. So the best take for me is the one you said, fear is a reaction and courage is the decision. Rightly put, sir. Normally they say the courage is not the absence of the fear. Courage is the ability to manage the fear without getting petrified. And you well put it in a very short one. Fear is the reaction and courage is the decision. Thank you very much, sir. And in fact, thank you very much. It's an honor. It's a privilege to be with you in ISTD Kozhikode and having able to attend a training session led by you. It's really a privilege, sir. I wouldn't have actually got this opportunity if I haven't joined ISTD with you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for the session. And I think we need more of you in future. We may have an offline session also, as you suggested, on leadership later on when the time is apt. And to participants, I would really appreciate, I've already shared the feedback form in the thing in the chat. If you can all kind of take 2 minutes and share your feedback of the session. I'll give you 2 minutes so that you can do that now itself. Just 2 minutes because only 5 to 6 questions. It's 9:18, so we'll wait till 9:20. 2 minutes for you. Hope you all can do it. I'll share the link once again. So many are asking whether you can share the PPT. Hariz, sir.
I think the thing is recorded, so that will have the complete thing.
Yeah, we have recorded it. Well, and it will be uploaded in our YouTube channel.
Yeah, without the explanation, it makes no
sense.
With that, it will be there.
It will be uploaded in our YouTube channel, sir.
Okay.
After the required editing. Yeah, thank you very much. And we are concluding the session. And I would like to call upon our Colonel Nisa Sidi, sir, for delivering the word of thanks. Colonel, sir.
A wonderful and great evening. And I have no words, General Hariz sir, for a wonderful, exhaustive, and very, very elaborate. And also, it was too informative even for veterans like us. And we had all participation from the Indian Army, Indian Air Force, and Indian Navy also today. And other than the ISTD other chapters, it was something like a national integration, people even joining from Guwahati, Nasik, Bangalore, and so on. That was really wonderful.
Pune too.
Pune too. Yeah, I missed out some of the places. And yes, of course, it took a little more time because you have covered everything so much in detail. And I think it was very informative for non-army, non-air force, and non-navy personnel because you covered everything. I mean, including the national security, the setup, the organization, about the armed forces, and also you have, put in so much of valid information for the business, for the corporate people. What is the main difference between the corporate leadership and the army or the armed forces leadership? That was very crystal clear, leading from the front with personal examples. So thank you so much, Hariz sir, for I know you have just come back a day before, and I know you would have put in so much of effort to get 74 slides. I mean, so nice of you at this senior veteran age. I mean, I really salute you, sir. It was a magnificent and marvelous effort from you.
Thank you
I
so
know
much.
that you have nobody to help you there. It was all by yourself.
So I'm actually now relearning how to make.
Too good, sir. Too good. I mean, this is what is no age is only a number. It's everything there in the mind,
and hence the slides in two colors of red and blue alone. So that
that was good,
there's
sir.
no
I mean, there was
into
no
it.
requirement of multicolors and making it so confusing. It was very simple slides, and we could read it with so much of clarity.
Thank you.
Thank you so much on behalf of ISTD, the national, as well as the Kozhikode chapter, on behalf of Shaukat and all the MC members, the training members. And I would be failing in my duty if, Deepak for spearheading the whole show, the training online man. Then our ticketing partner, TIQR, has also played a very important role and made it so easy for all of us to register into the event. And of course, without all of you, this would not have been possible. And it was at one time I counted 57, which is something out of the blue because I have attended so many online meetings. If you have registration about 200, you may get 10 to 20 people attending because all of us are busy with something or the other activities. So that shows the compassion, that shows the interest in the armed forces. That was very appreciative, sir. So thank you all for a wonderful evening and definitely looking forward for more sessions, both online, and I have a request at least once in 3 months, we must have an offline session so that the personal touch would be much more.
Yes.
So God bless. Thank you all and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Nisar sir. With this,
thank you so very much. So we can sign off now. Good day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. With this, we hereby adjourn the session. Thank you. Good night. And Jai Hind.